this is Studio X, and in today's video I will be showing you how to create a very interesting echo effect using After Effects with no third-party plugins. So let's get started. So open up your After Effects software and find the footage you're going to be using. So in my case, I have this footage of a time lapse. So my camera is steady and the actor that I need to focus on is right in the center of the shot. So we can just take this clip and throw it into After Effects, and then just take it and drag it into a new composition. So here we have our clip. Next thing that we need to do is we are going to go into Effects and Presets, and you're going to type in Echo and just take it and drag it onto the clip. So as you can see right away, it makes it very bright, and that's because the echo operator selection is set to a blending mode of add, and you can just change it to minimum and it's gonna get rid of that issue. So as you can see, let's zoom in and see what it's currently doing. So if you disable and enable the effect, you can see that it's starting to add a layer of another person right behind them. So let's just make it 10 so we can see what it's actually doing, and you can see it's starting to add and basically make a little centipede looking effect from the same person. And because the main actor is barely moving, he's still doing some actions throughout the scene, but because he's barely moving, nothing crazy is happening to him. So the key here is I shot this in normal speed, so if I just play it back, you'll see that it's just a normal speed recording, so not an actual time lapse. And you're gonna need that in order to actually get the correct trailing, because if you did a time lapse, this person on this frame is gonna be right here, and then in the next frame he could have, walked away really far and been over there, and it would be very difficult for the computer to figure out exactly how he went. So when you're shooting this footage, shoot it on a tripod and shoot it in a normal 24 frames per second or 30 frames per second. So let's enable our echo effect and let's see what we can actually do. So I've skipped to a point in the video where there's lots of people walking around in the scene, and we can kind of still see our actor here. So the first thing that we're going to do now with this effect is you're going to increase the number of echoes. So I'm gonna set it to 50 and I'm gonna see how that looks. So as you can see now, we're getting a lot of trailing here from different people, and that's looking kind of nice. The only thing we're gonna need to fix is you can see it ends abruptly, and in order to fix that, you're just gonna need to play with the decay. So I'm just gonna make it 0.98, and I'm gonna increase the number of echoes as well. I'm gonna make it let's make it 200, because I want the trailing to be really long, because we're gonna fast forward the footage, so they're gonna be flying by pretty quick, so we're gonna need a longer trail. That way they don't seem like a really short ghost. Okay, so now we are seeing a very, very interesting trailing effect here. So I do like the way that the ghosting looks, so now I'm just gonna press on the clip, go to Layer, Pre-Compose, Move All Attributes, and I'm gonna call it Time Lapse, and just hit OK. Don't forget to save your project. I'm just gonna call this, I'm gonna just save this onto my desktop and call it Ghost Tutorial. Okay, so now it's time to speed up the clip. So you can just right click on it, go to Time Stretch, and my original duration of the clip is almost 9 minutes, and I want to make it 20 times faster, so my stretch factor is going to be 5, and it makes the new video 26 seconds long, so that looks pretty good. And I'm just going to hit OK. So as you can see, it really squeezed it down, so I'm just going to trim to the comp size and click somewhere just so we can update my frame. Okay, so here's one of the frames that we have here. It's looking pretty neat. Let's check out a different place, because it's a time lapse, so this pot could have had tons of people, which is why it looks really dark. So let's just go into a different part and see how that looks. So again, this part seems pretty dark, so maybe I'm gonna go into my time lapse, correct some settings. Okay, so if you see that it's pretty dark, so we're gonna go and change the decay from 0.98 to 0.95, and let's check it out. Okay, so that's looking better, but now I feel like there's a little bit too little, so I'm just gonna change it to 0.96. So the biggest thing with doing an effect like this is trial and error and just trying to get your settings right. I feel like this time it should be pretty good, and yeah, this looks great. I'm just gonna change the echo time from negative 0.03333 to negative 0.04. Doing that should extend the length of the trail without affecting the decay too much. So here's the updated scene. That is looking pretty good. Let's move back onto our main composition here. That is looking perfect. So I'm just gonna save the project, and there's a couple of things that I'm going to do. So I'm just gonna make a new adjustment layer and rename it to CC. You can rename by pressing enter. So we're basically done with the echo effect, and now it's time to add some color correction and some slight motion. And after that, we should be good. So for color correction, I'm just gonna go into photo filter and bring it in here. And yeah, that looks pretty good. I'm just gonna keep this warm filter that is here, and I'm just gonna change the density to 20%. That looks nice. Next thing I would need to do is to bring in anamorphic crop, and you can just Google it, or you can just mask it, but I have a file that's just called anamorphic croppings with a alpha channel that you can just drop on, right click, and go to transform fit to comp, and it's just gonna crop your footage to fit it to the anamorphic ratio. So another thing that I will want to do is, because it's a time lapse, it's kind of boring when it's just completely still, when the camera is just standing in the exact same spot. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna turn off the echo effect just so I can see the scene and control it easily without needing to render the entire time. And I'm just gonna start with 1 second here, and I'm just gonna crop this endpoint here, just because in the very first few seconds there is no echoing effect, because there's nothing else it can reference to, because it was the first frame. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna hit P, and I'm gonna keyframe the position, and I'm gonna hit S, and I'm gonna keyframe the scale. So I'm gonna hit U to bring up both of those keyframes, and for the position I'm gonna bring that out because that's the final position I want it to be, is like dead center. And I'm gonna push it to around 20 seconds. Let's see. You can see somebody looked into the camera here. Yeah, maybe like, yeah, like, oh, so I've had my co-director walk into the frame there, and I'm just gonna crop the clip up to this point, and for scale I'm gonna make it 110, so that kind of zooms it in a little bit. Maybe I'll make it 118. Yeah, that's looking pretty good. And then for position, I'm just going to move it up so it kind of comes down from the sky. Great. And I'm going to keep the keyframes the way they are, because I'm going to be cutting from action to the other action, from cutting on movement basically, so I don't need to ease out the keyframes. I'm just going to keep it the way this is. So now we can go back into the time lapse, enable our echo effect, and go back into our main comp. Alright, this looks great. So now it's good to go to render out. I think the only thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna also add a little vignette to the edges. So I'm just gonna hide the footage so it doesn't slow me down. I'm gonna go to layer, solid, make it comp size, make it black, hit OK. Go to the mask tool and choose the ellipse, and you can just double click on it, drag it under the anamorphic crop. Then in the properties over here, just choose subtract. Then you can choose the feathering and just feather it out a ton. Perfect. And I'm gonna hit T for opacity and just make it something like 30. That way it's just a little vignette. Actually, I'm gonna go to MM for the mask, and I'm gonna put up the mask expansion a little bit. That way it's not super intense. Yeah, maybe I'll take down the opacity to 20 as well. So this should be great. I'm gonna save it and export it out, and let's check it out. So to export out the video, just go to File, Export, Add to Render Queue. Click on the thing where it says Lossless, and I'm on a Mac, so I can just render it to QuickTime. And in their format options, I'm gonna choose Apple ProRes 4444, and hit OK. Hit OK. Choose the location where you'd want to save it. I'm gonna save it right here, and I'm just gonna call it Timelapse William, because that's the actor's name. So hit save and then hit render. So as you can see, this is a very interesting effect that makes a time lapse look interesting, gives a very nice ghosting look to all the people in the scene, and helps blur them out. That way you can't really tell who the people are. This shot is actually from a film I'm currently working on called Godspeed. So I hope this tutorial was helpful for you and you learned something new. I will be coming out with a lot more tutorials soon. To stay up to date to my channel, you can subscribe and you'll be notified anytime I'll make a video. If you have any questions, be sure to comment down below, and I'll see you in the next one.